Welcome back, everybody, to The Path of Steel. Randy here again. Today, I want to talk to you about social fearlessness. Now, I have noticed in my addiction and through my behavior that one of the things that was pervasive throughout it all was an ever-increasing isolation from people. The people I love, my friends, even the people, at the end, I wasn't even hanging out with my drinking buddies anymore. And I noticed I've been lurking around in various addiction recovery groups on Facebook and listening to the people's stories and interacting with them a bit. I haven't started spamming out these videos there yet. I will eventually, just because those are the people that need to see these. I think everybody needs to see this because I think my philosophy on how I live my life now is a very, very good one. I think it will help a lot of people. It has certainly helped me, not just in addiction recovery, but in every aspect of my life. And one of the things that got me there was social fearlessness. And one of the things that I notice within these groups is this feeling of isolation, this loneliness that people feel. Now, back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, a lot of research had been done on addiction, where they were giving rats bottles of water with morphine in them and bottles of water with water in them, or they would give them a paddle that gave them food and a paddle that gave them some kind of drug, and they would notice that the rat would eventually just choose the drug over and over and over and over again until the rat died of an overdose. And they concluded that these things had chemical hooks in them and that the rats were not capable of staying away from. Well, later on, back in the 70s, a guy named Bruce Alexander, who was doing addiction research, he looked at all of that research and he said this is all very flawed research, that it's biased for one very, very, very important reason. And the reason was these rats were all kept individually in little steel cages. Now, rats, like humans, are extremely social creatures. They need interaction with other rats. If you release a rat someplace out, it will seek out the scent of other rats to find rats to be around. Well, they couldn't do that in a little cage. And just like prisoners in a prison, prisoners in a prison would rather be with all the other dangerous criminals than be in an isolated cell. Same thing with these rats. So he said, well, what would happen if we gave these rats a big, huge environment with everything they need, lots of social interaction? Would the results be the same? And he called this Rat Park. And just look up Bruce Alexander and the Rat Park experiments in the 70s. I think he published it in 1981. Journal of Psychopharmacology, I believe, was the first place it was published. Anyway, really interesting research, and it led me, it's one of the things that led me to one of my strategies for curing myself of my addictions. Now, I have all my life lived at a redonkulous level of introversion. And it served me well in some places. It served me well in college because, introversion is great for learning math and science and chemistry, which I'm really good at all of those things. But it's not very good for forming social circles. It's not very good for having that sense of community and that lack of loneliness in your life, which I have always felt a great deal of all my life, even when I had friends, because I was always a little bit socially awkward. Well, after reading this research, that was one of the things that led me to thinking I need to go out and seek out social interaction with people. Now, in December of 2016, I had been free of alcohol for about a year and a half at that point. I think almost exactly a year and a half. And I was still living a very hermit-like life. Even more so because now I wasn't ever going out to bars or social situations because I felt like I couldn't. Now I probably could go into those situations. I still sort of avoid bars and drinking for the sake of just going to a bar. But I can go there at this point. I'm at 2 years and 9 months in, something like that. I don't know. I stopped paying attention to how long it's been since I've had a drink a long time ago. So I realized in 2016, December of 2016, that it had been at least 6 weeks since I'd had a conversation with somebody. I work online. I don't have to actually interact with people in real life. I send their packages to them. So I don't have a work-life circle of friends. I wasn't going out to bars and drinking. I'd sort of not cut out my drinking friends, but I sort of distanced myself away from them a little bit, so I didn't have that social circle of friends. And I felt like I didn't know how it was going to be possible for me to have friends. How is that possible? Where do you go? Where do you meet them? I know that if you have issues with addiction, and if you are in recovery, and if you are working on all this stuff, regardless of whether you're using a 12-step program or not, you're asking yourself these same questions. Now, I talk a lot of crap about 12-step programs, but the one place where I give them kudos, the one thing they definitely get right, is they give people lots of opportunities to go and be around other people. And I think that this is just purely my own opinion, but I truly believe that this is true, that the 5 to 10% recovery rate that they do have is almost entirely attributable to that. Not anything that's found in that big book. It's almost entirely due to the fact that people have a place to go to be around other people where they don't have to worry about being around drugs or alcohol, and they can have that social interaction with people. Okay, so I wasn't going to meetings. So what do? What's my answer? Well, as it turns out, I go out into the world. And I've been doing this for, I haven't spent as much time doing it lately, but I still do it every day. It started out with a rule. It was one of my New Year's resolutions for 2017. And that rule was that I was not allowed to leave the house without saying hello to at least one person. Now, this was difficult for me at first. And there were days when I would wander around a grocery store like stifled, like wanting to say hello to this person, wanting to say hello to that person, but not doing it. That was how stifled I was. Just saying hello to an old lady. That was how stifled I was. But eventually I would sort of force myself to be like, hello, and then I'd, run away. So that got easier day by day. And then it was say hello to 5 people. And then it was say hello to people and also try to start a conversation with them if they're friendly. And now I walk around. That eventually led to something that I highly recommend everybody do. This is an exercise that's difficult, it's weird, people will look at you strangely, they will think you're crazy, but it's so amazing. I call it machine gun opening. And I go to the International Plaza and I wander around the mall and I say hello. I'll spend the first 10 or 20 minutes that I'm there saying hello to every single person that walks past me. And they'll see me coming because I'm saying hello to this person and that person, this person and that person. I can see they're looking at me like, oh God, this crazy person's going to talk to me, aren't they? And I do. And I don't care. And the reason that I do it isn't to become friends with these people. It isn't even to get anything from them at all. Well, no, that's not true. What I get from them is the experience of having the fear of saying hello to everybody, knowing that they think it's crazy and doing it anyway. And it gets easier and easier and easier. And so I do this at the post office, and I do it at the grocery store, and I do it everywhere I go. And now people know me by name, and I know them by name. And I use people's name tags, and they love it because no one ever does that. And so I remember their name tags, so when they're not wearing them, I still can call them by the name. And now everybody smiles when I come in. They say hello to me. They ask me how my things are going because they know what I'm about. I ask them what their passions in life are, and they tell me, and I ask them about them later. You know, the post office, there's a woman named Carlene. She makes quilts. You know, I encouraged her, she wants to start selling them. I encouraged her to do it, become an entrepreneur. You know, and so now when I see her, I ask her about her quilts, and she asks me about my plant business. And so now when I go out into the world, I'm surrounded by people that like me and talk to me, and I don't have to feel isolated and alone anymore. And now I'm becoming good friends with some of these people. And it doesn't have anything to do with being out in a bar or drinking. Now this is challenging and this is scary, but you have to do this. If you're sitting around feeling alone and thinking about calling your dealer or going to the store to get that bottle, if you're like me, you might, if you're an alcoholic like I used to be, and I know I used to be, that's something that'll make the AA people's heads spin around. But if you're an alcoholic like I used to be, you'll find yourself in that wine aisle without even thinking about it because you're bored and you're lonely. Well, don't be lonely and you won't be bored. Go out and talk to people every time you go out. Make those social fearlessness challenges for yourself. Seek out scary environments. Join clubs, go to conventions. Put yourself out there. Definitely don't sit around feeling lonely. It is a major, major key to solving these problems. Another piece of research was they noticed that certain people after surgeries would become addicted to the opiates that they would give them to deal with the pain from the surgery. And other people would stop using the opiates and have no problem. And so they started looking at the correlations. What is different about these two people? And the one thing that they found was that the people that did not continue using the opiates after the surgery were people that had very strong social circles and family circles to act as support for them. And they just didn't feel the need for it once they were done with their surgical pain. They stopped using it. It was the people that were isolated and alone that wanted to continue to use it. So it's Rat Park. It's Rat Park all over again. Get out there, be social. I know if you're like me, that's not easy. That's way easier said than done. But I did it, and I'm the most introverted person in the world practically. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I did it. So get out there and do it, man. Make some friends. And don't worry about it. Just, there's gonna be assholes. Fuck the assholes. I run into assholes all the time. They look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why are you talking to me? I don't want to talk to you. Okay, cool. I just move on to the next person. Say hello to them. Fearlessness. It's the opposite of addiction.